Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Lukeson, and on behalf of the leadership team at COVA Coalition, I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us tonight. We know this forum came together on a relatively short timeline, but it was important to us that voters in the Virginia 2nd Congressional District have an opportunity to hear directly from the Democratic candidates seeking to earn their vote before the August 4th primary. Tonight is also a testament to the power of coalitions and community partnerships. Events like this don't happen because of one organization. They happen because people come together with a shared commitment to civic engagement and democracy. I want to thank our guest moderator, Kate Powell, also known to many of you as Kate for the People. I'd also like to thank South Hampton Roads Indivisible for their partnership in helping plan, produce, and record tonight's event. And speaking of recording, if you didn't see the signs, tonight's forum is being recorded for national broadcast by C-SPAN. The forum will air multiple times before the primary election and will also be available on the C-SPAN website as well as through covacoalition.org. At COVA Coalition and across our partner organizations, we believe voters deserve more than campaign slogans and 30-second sound bites. We want a congressional representative who is prepared to defend democratic institutions, protect our communities, and effectively represent the people of coastal Virginia. To help make that possible, candidates were provided only the topics and the order of questions. They were not provided the questions themselves. We worked with community members and partner organizations to develop questions focused on policy, leadership, and the issues that matter most to the residents of Virginia's 2nd District. More importantly, tonight is about you, the voters. Our hope is that you leave with a better understanding of the candidates, their priorities, and their vision for our district. Grassroots organizing is powered by the people, and few people embody that spirit better than the woman I'm about to introduce. It is my pleasure to welcome the co-founder of COVA Coalition, Carrie Short, who will share more about how you can get involved in the movement we are building here in coastal Virginia. Please join me in welcoming Carrie.
Hello, and thank you all for being here. Just want to make sure everyone gets a chance to see my t-shirt. COVA Coalition is proudly grassroots. We are affiliated with Indivisible, Network, Nova, and Red, Wine, and Blue, so welcome to the grassroots community of coastal Virginia. I just want to take 1 second to introduce members of the leadership team who are most likely running around behind the scenes. Really quickly, our comms chair is Catherine Fletcher. Pete Woodhead is our visibility brigade and rallies and protest committee chair. Bill Johnson-Miles is on comms. Allison Carl-Smith is our amazing postcard chair. Lynn Teague is our street teams chair, and of course, Melissa Lukeson is our VB lead. And Lisa Billow, who is our Norfolk lead, isn't here tonight. The reason I'm pointing that out is because although we are a small and mighty leadership team, we have over 1,500 members with a mailing list of several thousand folks. So we are very serious about our role as grassroots leaders. We do not work for candidates. We do not work for parties. We stick our neck out for democracy regularly. Oh, well, thank you. So with that in mind, we are very proud to bring you this forum, and we hope that you will engage with COVA Coalition in what we're calling our Summer of Engagement, getting the word out, most importantly, about the 3 constitutional amendments that are on our ballot this fall. COVA Coalition was founded 3 years ago today, which was at that point the 1-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision. Today's anniversary of the Dobbs decision brings home why it's so important that we pass this ballot initiative in November to codify abortion rights in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That deserves applause. Because many grassroots organizers in this room worked very hard to get these ballot initiatives on the ballot. We are also working very hard to codify marriage equality in the Commonwealth, which, although is protected, is not in our Constitution. And of course, we want to give felons who have served their sentence a right to participate in democracy. So with that in mind, we do hope that this is just the first in lots of actions you are going to take to protect democracy and flip CD2 with COVA Coalition.
Okay. Introductions are over. Ground rules are ready. Our candidates featured tonight are running in a primary election seeking the Democratic nomination in the 2nd Congressional District to face Republican incumbent Jen Kiggins in November. Tonight we have Dr. Neela Devanath, Patrick Molsoff, and Bill Fleming participating. Elaine Luria was invited but unable to attend. Our moderator tonight is Kate Powell. Kate is an administrative juggernaut who fundraises and runs nonprofits for a living. She received her Bachelor of Music in Music Industry from James Madison University, go Dukes, and her Master of Public Administration from South University. She also earned her Certified Fundraising Executive Credential in June of 2019. Kate was an Inside Business Top 40 Under 40 honoree in 2022, and in 2025, she was awarded both the George Robert House Jr. Award for Outstanding Service by the American Society for Public Administration's Hampton Roads chapter, and Outstanding Nonprofit Leader by the Association of Fundraising Professionals Hampton Roads chapter. In her spare time, I don't know how she has any, she bothers our elected officials and public administrators into doing their jobs and teaches others the dark arts of advocacy, AKA being a menace, and I am her understudy. Sitting next to her tonight is Kat Porterfield with Stoke Media. She will be the timekeeper and assisting with any live fact-checking, if necessary. Before we begin, few ground rules. Candidates were provided the forum rules and expectations in advance. First, today's event is a forum. It's not a debate and not a campaign rally. COVA Coalition is committed to providing a fair, informative, and respectful forum for voters. Our goal tonight is simple: to help voters better understand where the candidates stand on the issues that matter most to Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. We carefully curated tonight's questions with input from partner organizations and members of the community. We will not be taking questions from the audience during the program. However, following the forum, candidates will be available in the lobby area to meet with attendees and answer questions. Candidates are seated in alphabetical order, and we'll start in alphabetical order, and then the moderator will then rotate for the next first question. Candidates will have opportunities for opening and closing statements, responses to policy questions, and a rapid-fire no filibuster round requiring yes or no answers. And we'll conclude with a segment called Let's Get Personal, where you'll have a chance to meet the human behind the campaign. Questions will be posed by the moderator, and each question will receive equal opportunities to respond. Candidates have agreed to focus their answers on their own priorities, values, and policy positions. They have also agreed to refrain from personal attacks or negative comments regarding the character, qualifications, or activities of other candidates, elected officials, or individuals. We want tonight to be about ideas, policies, and solutions, not personalities. We ask everyone in attendance to join us in that commitment to civility and respect. To ensure we have time to cover as many issues as possible, time limits will be strictly enforced. Our timekeeper will display a green card at the halfway point and provide an audible signal. A red card will indicate the time is expired. When you see the red card, please finish your sentence so we can move on. Time limits are as follows. Opening statements, candidates, you have 90 seconds. Policy questions, you have 60 seconds. In your closing statements, you will also have 60 seconds. To ensure every candidate has equal opportunity to be heard, we asked audience members to refrain from applauding, cheering, booing, groaning, or otherwise reacting during the forum. Remember, we're recording this for C-SPAN, y'all. Please save your applause until the conclusion of the event, where we can offer applause to all of the candidates at one time. Every candidate deserves the opportunity to speak without interruption, and limiting audience reactions helps us stay on schedule. Please silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. If you need to leave during the program, we ask that you do so quietly using the exits at the rear of the auditorium. This forum is being video recorded for national broadcast and will also be made publicly available through our website, and it will also be on C-SPAN's website. Finally, tonight is about informing voters. You do not have to agree with everything you hear, but we ask that you listen respectfully, think critically, and leave with a better understanding of the choices before you. Thank you for being here, and I will give that floor to Kate. Hold on, let me unmute her mic. This is for you.
Great, thank you.
Unmute her.
All right, thank you so much, Melissa, Carrie, COVA Coalition, and Southampton Roads Indivisible. It is an absolute pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to pause for just a moment while we Get the feedback? Awesome. We are now going to roll right into opening statements for our candidates. Candidates, you will have 90 seconds for your opening statement. Once the time is up, please complete your sentence and we will move on and we will go in alphabetical order as stated. So Dr. Neela Devanath, please.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Right into the microphone. Yes, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Neela Devanath, and I am a Harvard-trained doctor, Yale-trained attorney, brand new mom, and most importantly, a Hampton Roads native. My parents immigrated from Bangladesh over 40 years ago and made Hampton Roads their home. I grew up in Chesapeake and Suffolk, and I work and live in District 2 as a community hospital doctor. In fact, I actually have a shift tomorrow. I've worked for the Department of Justice, the Centers for Disease Control, Planned Parenthood, and I've helped shape policy on the national level in immigration, education, and healthcare. I am the progressive voice in this race, and I am running on universal healthcare, lowering costs for working families, and also I'm running to make history as the first person of color to represent District 2 in 237 years. That's its entire history.
Beep, beep.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
All right. Mr. Bill Fleming.
Thank you. My name is Bill Fleming. I've been here since 1994. I have background in science. I originally was going to be an aerospace engineer, switched to physics because I liked what we were being taught. I got a bachelor's degree, had a great job offer with the Naval Weapons Labs, but they canceled job deferments at the same time, so I continued and got a PhD and then went into the U.S. Army. We were told that we could only stay in for active reserves, so we didn't have opportunities to switch. I've been involved with IBM, the National Institute of Health, as a postdoctoral fellow. I worked for a government contracting company my father started, and we since then have been involved in environmental issues, including the Nature Conservancy, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I'm a lifetime member of the Sierra Club, and I've been involved with,
Mr. Patrick Molsoff.
Good evening, everyone. This evening, I would like to share with you that together we can restore democracy in the American dream. I grew up in a small town called Point Pleasant, Ohio, and commuted into Cincinnati to go to school. Later, I attended Northwestern University as a National Merit finalist, and I was influenced by my Aunt Joan, who was a civil rights activist and also involved in the women's rights movement and the environmental movement. I decided at a young age to commit my life to social change, activism, and making a difference in our country and the world. Immediately after college, I went and was the director of a homeless shelter, and later I went overseas and worked in a variety of different countries, eventually making my way to work with USAID. With the end of USAID, I decided to run for Congress because most of my career has been related to democracy, government respect for human rights. And my platform is centered around reconciliation, reform of our democratic system, and bringing our system to a good cost of living for people. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, candidates. We are going to move on to our question and answer session on policies. As previously stated, you will have 60 seconds each. On the first question, I will be going in alphabetical order, and then I will begin rotating through the candidates, so each of you will get several chances to answer first, middle, and last. So for this first question, Dr. Neela Devanath, you are first. And the question is on energy. Americans are concerned about energy costs, energy independence, grid reliability, and climate change. The Coastal Virginia offshore wind project is one of the largest energy infrastructure investments in the nation and a significant source of jobs and economic activity in Hampton Roads. What specific actions should Congress take to lower energy costs, strengthen energy independence, and create more energy sector jobs while balancing the roles of offshore wind, solar, nuclear power, and traditional energy sources?
Thank you so much, Kate. I think that Congress should legislate to make sure that we protect clean energy jobs. So specifically for District 2, that wind turbine project had been worked on for about 10 years. And there were so many different people, thousands of people, truly involved in making that project and starting basically all of our... 30. Oh, thank you. Making the project a success. President Trump was the one who stopped it in its tracks. We need to protect these projects and make sure that jobs are available for all of us in clean energy forums, not only with the wind turbines, but also solar energy. And I know I'm running out of time here, but I actually wanted to talk a little bit about data centers as well. Those are driving up our costs. Thank you so much.
Mr. Fleming.
She's correct that it's been delayed. The wind systems has been delayed up and down the coast by Trump and the people that have been against clean energy. I'm proposing a new way of doing things. I've been researching this over the past few weeks to provide the different counties in the 2nd Congressional District with wind turbines under government sponsorship and have them onshore. It would take a relatively small number of turbines in each county to produce electricity. It could be done through the county itself. They could act as the utility rather than have to deal with a utility like Dominion Energy. And by doing that, they would accumulate energy which goes onto the grid and be paid for it just the way people do with solar panels on their roofs. But the money would come into the county and be distributed either to the people.
Mr. Molsoff.
If anyone's heard me speak before, you've probably heard me mention about the crises that our country is facing, and I believe that the climate change crisis is one of the biggest ones that we're facing as a country and in the world in general. It's a slow-moving crisis, but unfortunately we've seen an abandonment of responsibility by the Republicans and specifically Trump. I'm getting around to the point that we need to move towards renewable energy 100% as much as possible. Therefore, I support wind energy, I support solar power, I support other sources of power in general, and I also support reducing our usage of power. So overall, I believe that we need to invest. We need government investment, as we saw through Biden's Build Back Better Act, which provided subsidies for electric vehicles and generally stimulated the market, provided employment. Overall, I support renewable energy to get at the climate change crisis.
Fantastic. Moving on to healthcare, and this one will start with Mr. Bill Fleming once I finish reading the question. Related to healthcare, the 2025 Budget Reconciliation Bill, some of you may know that as the big, beautiful bill, and other federal actions will cut Medicaid spending, stripping healthcare from Virginians, and accelerating the financial crisis for hospitals. 66.5% of all personal bankruptcies are caused by medical debt, and healthcare outcomes are declining. What are your proposals to get Americans access to affordable healthcare? Mr. Bill Fleming, we'll start with you.
First, I'm interested in becoming a member of the Ag Committee in Congress because it's particularly involved with SNAP and WIC programs, which have been vital to people under the economic bracket that enables people. It's interestingly the government in Virginia has a lot of employees that are actually under the WIC program and SNAP. I'd also like to work with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren to review the public health care for all programs, work with them to find out any issues that would be problems, and work with them and other members of Congress to get Medicare for all passed so that we don't have to deal with rising costs from insurance companies.
Mr. Molsoff?
My goal is universal health care. Universal health care is a goal. It basically means that everyone should have health insurance, and it should be done in such a way that it does not cause financial ruin, as mentioned in the message. But there's actually a number of different ways to get to universal health care. One of them is Medicare for all. Other is regulated insurance. And there are other options as well, such as a mixture of a government insurance plan as well as the private sector as we have now. And I believe we need to use our government apparatus to study all of the different ways that healthcare is implemented in other countries, look at what has happened in those countries, and make a very measured and well-informed decision. However, it's worth noting that we could probably design the best system and we could come up with the greatest system that would be great for Americans, but it's also going to come down to what is politically feasible. So apparently Obama wanted to have a government insurance option, but as we know, that's not part of it. In short, I'm in favor of restoring Medicare, Medicaid, and also restoring the Obamacare subsidies and moving forward from there.
Wonderful. Dr. Deveneth?
Hi, thank you so much, Kate. I am a hospital doctor, so I see what happens in our healthcare system when it doesn't work. I'm the person who takes care of people when they have heart attacks, when they have sepsis. I see our veterans coming in all the time, unfortunately, and so many of our community members. My focus is going to be on universal healthcare. Universal healthcare is what uplifts human dignity. It means that all of us have the care that we need to survive and thrive. We don't need to go through these piecemeal forms. Right now, if you're over 65, you have one thing. If you're under 65, you have another. If you're employed, not employed. If you're a veteran, not a veteran. If you're a child. When we have a piecemeal system like this, what it does is it creates cracks, and people fall through the cracks. Universal health care is something bold. It's not going to happen overnight, but we need to elect leaders to Congress who are actually bold enough to make that decision now.
Thank you so much. We are going to move on to the military, and Mr. Molsoff, when I finish reading the question, we will start with you. Virginia's 2nd Congressional District is home to one of the largest military communities in the world. The latest defense budget proposal of $1.5 trillion included shipbuilding investment and military pay raises. How do you balance support for defense jobs in this region with your broader views on federal spending? Mr. Molsoff.
Well, I think it's important to note that is a proposal, and I believe there was an increase of approximately 50% proposed by Donald Trump. So even if we do not accept that, and I think that is a big ask, especially considering the national debt, if we don't accept that and keep military funding as it is, it's not necessarily going to affect negatively this district in terms of the jobs, in terms of employment, in terms of military deployments. So I don't think that we should accept Trump's proposal. It's linked to the war in Iran, which was a war of choice by Donald Trump, and I don't think that we can afford to spend that much as well. I was talking with someone earlier today on the phone who said that all of the great empires in history fell due to lagging under the weight of military-industrial complex spending. And I simply do not think we can afford that kind of spending. But I do believe that we may be able to maintain the kind of spending that we have, and that will safeguard the role of the jobs of people here in the 2nd Congressional District. And generally, I value the military, and I think that it does have a role in the world until we reach a much more peaceful time than we have now.
Amazing. All right. We are moving on to veterans. I'm sorry. My apologies, everyone. I guess our other two candidates should answer the question. Dr. Deveneth, please answer the question.
Thank you so much. So my position on military spending is, number one, it is important to this district because we do have a lot of military industrial complexes here. We have a lot of folks who are working on shipbuilding jobs, et cetera. However, as stated, this is tied right now, this defense budget is tied to the war in Iran. I do not believe we should be putting our military active duty members in harm's way. I think that we are spending way too much on this war when we don't have enough money to fund domestic programs. There are ways that we can work on our budget to make sure that healthcare is funded, education is funded, childcare is funded, but instead we're spending it fighting wars for other countries that we're not even sure exactly why we're there. That puts lives at risk, and it's honestly too much to spend for our budget.
Wonderful. Mr. Fleming.
First of all, I'd like to mention that I was a member of Milcom Systems Corporation It started in the 1970s here in Virginia Beach, and we had to sell it around 2007 due to tax issues related to the eventual passing of my parents. But we had 750 people in 10 different locations throughout the U.S. At the time, we had to sell, it was $150 million in revenue at the time. We need to work to restore our military and work in Congress to make sure that things aren't run as an autocratic system by people like Trump.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fleming. Just a quick reminder to the audience to please silence any cell phones or any other noise-making devices. Thank you so much. All right, we are going to move on to the related topic of veterans affairs, that sort of thing. And Dr. Devanathan, we will start with you once I finish reading the question. Virginia's 2nd Congressional District is home to more than 80,000 veterans, nearly 15% of the district. Congresswoman Kiggins frequently highlights her support for veterans, yet she previously voted for a 22% budget cut that the Department of Veterans Affairs warned could lead to reductions in services and staffing. Veterans are experiencing delays in accessing health care, disability benefits, and mental health services. What reforms would you prioritize for the Department of Veterans Affairs?
Thank you so much, Kate. Veterans are a huge part of this community. They are in the fabric of this community. And we have a crisis right now in housing for our veterans. We also have a crisis in healthcare for our veterans. You're right. We have about 80,000 veterans here. And did you know that about 50%, close to 50%, actually switch over to Medicaid from TRICARE because it gives them some more opportunities in the community? What I would do is make sure that we restore Medicaid to its full capacity. And also for the Veterans Affairs system, we need more funding for mental health services. We also need more funding directed towards housing. So there are so many veterans right now who I see in the hospital coming in because they are unhoused, and that is what is leading to their deterioration in health, and that's one of the biggest reasons that we have. So housing is a must.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming?
I think that all people that are involved in military service should be able to get the Medicare they need, regardless of the source. One of the things I think might be beneficial is to use artificial intelligence and scheduling to make sure that the people that are veterans can find the medical care they need in the most efficacious way possible, and then take care of themselves through that, using humans, real physicians and medical assistants, med techs, to take care of themselves. We also do need improvements in housing for people in the military, because I've seen how people, the enlisted ranks, live, and it's not really as much as they deserve. Our military deserves respect and be treated as well throughout the time of their service as well as afterwards.
Wonderful. Mr. Mosoff?
I think when it comes to the Veterans Affairs and the VA, it's all about honoring our commitment to some of the most honorable people who have served our country. They put their lives on the line to serve our country, and we made a commitment to them when they signed up that this is what we would provide you with. And when a person like Jen Kiggins makes a 22% cut, I see that the United States is not honoring its obligation in terms of those people that sacrificed and put their lives on the line. So overall, I can say that we need to make sure that the VA remains fully funded, and that refers to both the medical facilities as well as the benefits functions, the claims processing. We need to make sure that it's funded enough to process people's claims for disability and other benefits. We need to make sure that they're getting the excellent medical care that they deserve. And I'm willing to commit to put the funding where my mouth is in order to make sure that all of the veterans in our district continue to be supported the way that they should be.
Thank you so much, candidates. We are going to move on to foreign policy. Mr. Fleming, we will start with you once I finish reading the question. Israel continues to be the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign assistance since World War II. Between 1946 and 2026, the total U.S. aid to Israel is an estimated $296 billion. There have been several efforts to impose conditions on the continued military aid to Israel. If elected, would you support conditions on using American taxpayer dollars to fund Israel's expanding military actions? Mr. Fleming.
The Jewish Voices for Peace, a group that's against the war, has said that at least 70,000 people have been murdered by the Israelis in their attacks in Gaza alone. Some of them are 20,000 children. The count can go up in the estimate to 300,000, except that most of those are in the rubble, the same rubble that Trump wants to put a resort on. I'm dead against the idea of continuing to fund Israel using their acts of aggression to murder innocent people using our weapons. I was against that when Biden was in place as well, and I think we need to stop that. The Israeli government's been funding the Congress using AIPAC and other sources of revenue that have been directed by AIPAC. We need to cut them out.
Mr. Mossoff.
I want to start off by saying that I served in Lebanon in my last position with USAID right after, 3 days after the start of the Israel-Gaza war, so this is something close to my heart. I also worked in the aid sector for many years, so the issue of aid. I actually did my master's degree on the issue of conditionality of aid. And I believe, number one, that all aid should be conditional, including to Israel. There should never be a situation in which aid is provided unconditionally. I'd also just like to take a detour and say that I believe that this reflects our campaign finance situation in this country with AIPAC and other pro-Israel donors, and it's really reflecting a domestic sickness. But overall, I think that I'm definitely going to look at reducing or eliminating aid to Israel. I don't think we can continue to give unconditional aid to Israel, especially when there are humanitarian issues that are being caused by Israeli aggression. I acknowledge that there are both sides to this situation, including Hamas, but overall, I support peace in the Middle East, and I think we need to work towards that.
Thank you. Dr. Devenath?
Thank you so much, Kate. I will just say this because I think it needs to be heard. There is a genocide going on. There is a genocide going on, and we cannot give any further military aid to a country that is committing genocide. You heard it. Tens of thousands of children. That's the future of a people. And they're gone. They're dead. So I do not support any further military aid to Israel because of what is going on. I also understand that there are both sides, but enough is enough. And also, we should not be participating in this war on their behalf. We're not even sure why we are. I don't support conditional support. I support no support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Devenath. I do have a follow-up to foreign policy, and I will go in the exact same order that I just did. So, Mr. Fleming, you'll be first. How would you distinguish support for America's allies while avoiding becoming involved in prolonged foreign conflicts?
The Trump administration shoots first and asks questions later or tries to cover up and make excuses. We shouldn't be getting into wars, and we wouldn't be doing that if we had a foreign policy, including a vigorous and viable State Department that hasn't been gutted by experts in the area. This happened actually in Vietnam as well. I remember a talk by a newsletter in the Washington Post by Jack Anderson, who pointed out that Ho Chi Minh had at one point contacted the State Department asking to get help to get rid of the French. If we had followed up with them, we wouldn't have had 56,000 or so people, Americans, killed in Vietnam, and something like $1.4 trillion diverted from Social Security to cover the cost of that war. The same goes for any other war, including this huge amount of debt that's being incurred by Trump.
Thank you. Mr. Mossoff.
It seems that this question is leading to Israel and Iran. However, I think it's also worth noting that, in my view, many of the really, really long wars that we got into, like Iraq and Afghanistan, were not necessarily in support of a particular ally, but were coming from a sort of a neoconservative perspective about the role of the United States in the world. In terms of balancing allies, and we don't want to get into prolonged wars, but I think the Ukraine war is actually an example of where we've been very lucky and successful in that we've never actually placed a single soldier in Ukraine. We've only provided about $110 million of support to Ukraine, and they are so valiant in fighting against Russia that they are practically holding off this huge power of Russia, and I think that can be a model for what we should do. But generally, we cannot afford to get involved into prolonged conflicts. We saw the devastation to the United States caused by the war in Iraq and the war in Iran. Excuse me. Yes, thank you. Afghanistan.
Thank you. Dr. Devanath.
Thank you so much, Kate. So in terms of our allies, I agree. I do think that we can provide some military aid, but that has to be evaluated. Congress has the power to evaluate whether we should continue, whether we should start warfare. We are the ones, Congress is the ones that authorize this. And each and every year they have that opportunity. I think, we can support our allies for limited amounts of time, but every year that we're involved in any conflict, we have to evaluate that and see, is this working for the American people? Are we supporting an ally that is doing the right thing, right? Or is there a lot of harm that's being caused around the world? We need to make sure that we are looking at this every single year. So military aid in terms of funding, weapons, but sending soldiers over, probably not prolonged.
Wonderful. We're going to move on to economy. And Mr. Molsoff, you will be first once I finish reading the question. In recent months, inflation has once again outpaced wage growth, leaving many families struggling with the rising cost of housing, groceries, healthcare, insurance, and childcare. What actions would you support to reduce the financial burden on working families without slowing economic growth? Mr. Molsoff.
There's a great piece of legislation in Congress right now. It's called the Working Americans Tax Cut Act. It's actually a great piece of legislation that would provide a tax cut to single people, $46,000 and below, and married people, I believe $92,000 and below, and then graduate the tax cut for people above that. And then it would balance that by imposing new taxes on people with income of $1 million or above, for a net positive to our fiscal situation of about $26 billion per year. The other big things that you can do to work on inflation was actually going down at the beginning of the Trump administration. It was gradually going down from a very high level in the Biden administration. And unfortunately, Trump started off by imposing all these irrational tariffs on everything. And then he started the war in Iran, which it impacted the cost of oil, which impacts everything, including transport, fertilizers, the price of gas at the pump. Basically, roll back Trump's policies, and that will help a lot.
Dr. Devanath.
So I actually also support the Working Americans Tax Cut Act. I took some time, actually probably 3 weeks after my baby was born, to go up to DC and learn about the Working Americans Tax Cut Act. So it does give a tax break to anybody who's at the cost of living nationally, which, folks are living paycheck to paycheck. We can't afford to not have a tax break. What this does, by the way, is it works really nicely in conjunction with other proposals in Congress. For instance, Bernie Sanders' tax on billionaires and Elizabeth Warren's tax on multimillionaires. While those two proposals, whichever one we end up choosing, will generate revenue for domestic programs, the Working Americans Tax Cut Act will give immediate relief. So we have immediate relief plus a buildup of revenue for childcare, education, and healthcare.
Thank you so much. Mr. Fleming.
Another aspect of being a member of the Ag Committee, if I were so chosen, is that a large percentage of the program is dedicated to helping farmers. Right now, the Farm Bill is dominated by large industrial ag companies that are providing money in return for gifts to them to improve their business selling pesticides, fertilizers, herbicides, and the like. Besides that, I would recommend setting up a set of programs to teach people that are in small businesses how to be able to run their programs more efficiently. There's a bachelor's of business administration, an MBA for master's of business administration, but there isn't really an effective program, an associate degree in business administration, to teach people how to run a small business and deal with things like overhead requirements for employees, things like that.
All right, we are going to move on to immigration. There are 2 separate questions for this topic, and Dr. Devanath, we will start with you once I finish reading the first one. Many voters say they are frustrated that Congress has spent years debating immigration without passing comprehensive reform. The bipartisan Langford border proposal attempted to combine stronger border enforcement with reforms to asylum processing and legal immigration pathways. If you were writing an immigration bill from scratch, what would your top 3 priorities be?
My top 3 priorities for immigration would be first, number 1, I guess this isn't really truly from scratch, but pass the DREAM Act. Does anybody remember the DREAM Act? Right. It has been stuck in Congress for years, almost, I think, over a decade at this point. I was one of the first people to lobby for the DREAM Act in Congress. One of my friends actually was a Bangladeshi, student, just like I was. He thought he was born here, but his parents didn't tell him that they never did his paperwork, and he was actually born in Bangladesh. So imagine coming here at 1 year old, and you think that you are a born and raised American, to find out 17 years later that you are not. I was luckily born in Pittsburgh, came down to Hampton Roads when I was 6 months old. But the first thing is the DREAM Act. I know I'm running short on time here. The second thing would be to reform ICE. And,
all right,
I'll get to the third later.
It's been probably 40, almost 50 years since the last time the immigration system was taken care of. We've got 40 years of fixes to make. It's very complicated, but it's been used by the Republicans for the past 40 years to accuse people as boogeymen for problems that they largely have created. We just need to take care of the whole system. I would have a team in my office to work with people to find out what's been proposed before, and whoever is involved in wanting to actually get a legitimate, universal and comprehensive immigration system established, so that we stop dealing with the foolishness about walls and letting some people get in. When I've canvassed before for other people, I've run into people running hotels in India, on the shore, who were from India. They complained about the time it took to become a citizen.
Thank you. Mr. Mossoff?
So the first thing is that I believe that many people who are coming to the United States are actually coming here because they want to have a better life. They're coming here because they want to earn more money. And so I think the first thing I would focus on is setting up a legal labor migration system, which would enable people to migrate here to the United States, because I believe we do actually need that labor, and I don't think there's any reason why they should be here illegally. The second thing is relating to ICE. I do not think that ICE can probably be reformed, because I believe that the organizational culture has probably just completely gotten out of hand, and it probably needs to be dissolved and reformulated with a completely new set of people. And the last thing I would say, the third thing, is about restoring an aid program. Many people do not realize that U.S. aid actually in Latin America, a lot of their programming was related to addressing the drivers that led people to migrate, primarily poor economic conditions and instability, war. So restore the aid program.
All right, we're going to go in the same order for the second question. Congress controls the funding and oversight of federal agencies, including ICE. People in this district are concerned about agent training, accountability, use of force, detention practices, and interactions with U.S. citizens and lawful residents. What reforms would you support regarding ICE's training standards, screening, and accountability processes and budget? Dr. Devenath.
Thank you so much, Kate. And just to finish up on that last point, so I also agree with making sure that we have faster processing for green cards for our citizens who are actually working here, paying their taxes, and basically being our neighbors, families, and friends. Continuing on to ICE. So I also agree that I don't think that it can be reformed. I think we do have to dissolve it at this point. Training should be extensive. It should be at least 1 year or longer. Right now, folks are being trained for 2 weeks. And that is not enough time to understand the complexities of talking to, immigrants who are coming in this country and working hard and figuring out what is their background. I do think the budget should be reduced. Right now, it's the highest funded domestic law enforcement agency, and it has about $75 billion headed towards it. Thank you.
Mr. Fleming.
A lot of the problems that exist with ICE are due to failures of the Department of Justice in setting standards by which they're required to behave. It's been exacerbated by groups of people within the Immigration and Customs Agency who seem to think that they should be Gestapo-style police agents. We don't need an ICE-stapo here in this country. We need people that are going to follow justice and the normal procedures that exist or have existed all the time in this country so that people are treated fairly. And that includes not allowing people to enter without warrants and avoiding habeas corpus.
Mr. Mossoff.
So I mentioned that I used to work for USAID, basically a humanitarian background, and I think the main thing is we need to treat these undocumented immigrants as if they are people. We need to take a more humanitarian approach with them. Like I said, I think that I don't think ICE can really be reformed because it's all about relationships and organizational culture. I think it should be dissolved, and if we still need that type of agency, then it can be reconstituted. In terms of accountability, I think that's can be like an administrative issue. It can be, we have like offices of Inspector General, maybe that really needs to be beefed up for something like this, where there's such a potential for abuse. I would be in favor of really beefing up the budget for them to work more effectively. And of course, they need more training, and the training needs to emphasize more about how do you treat people properly. There's also issues with the detention centers, of course, just horrible conditions for detention centers. If we can find a way to avoid having people be detained at all, that would be the best. Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to campaign finance reform. Mr. Fleming, we will start with you once I finish reading the question. Since the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision, outside spending by corporations, wealthy individuals, and political action committees has grown significantly. Would you support measures such as enhanced disclosure requirements, public financing of campaigns, contribution limits, or a constitutional amendment addressing the Citizens United decision, and how would you do that? Mr. Fleming.
One of the issues on the flyer I have out in the hallway is to get rid of dark money, corporate welfare, and the APAC contributions from any government elective programs. There's been a call for funding from the government so that the only people that can get funding can get it only from the federal government, a small amount. I've been trying to run my campaign using the least amount of money possible, and I have tricks that I figured out how to share with other people in the future. I agree that we need to eliminate dark money and the contributions from people who are taking over our government.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Mr. Mossoff?
Our political system has been completely corrupted by big money, essentially, and the Supreme Court has enabled this by declaring that, number one, corporations are people, and number two, that money is speech. Until we get around this kind of thing, it's going to be difficult, but I am happy about the fact that Hawaii and Montana have recently been trying to pass legislation which will get around the limitations imposed by the Citizens United decision, as well as several other Supreme Court decisions. I absolutely believe that we should limit the role of money in politics because our representatives are not talking to voters. They're not spending their time thinking about what policies, they're not researching policies. They're spending most of their time trying to raise money. And if you don't raise money, you're going to get outcompeted by the other person who does. So it's leading to a dysfunction in our government, and I will look for any possible way to change this part of our democratic system. I have a background in democracy and governance, and I see this as being the #1 priority to reform our system.
Dr. Devanath.
Thank you so much, Kate. I am part of the End Citizens United Unrig Washington campaign. And what that means is that I support legislation to reverse the effects of Citizens United. We absolutely need that in this country right now. All of the decisions on both sides of the aisle, by the way, are being controlled by billionaires, corporations, and essentially oligarchs, right? We don't have a voice right now, and we need people who are going to stand up and say, I'm not taking any corporate PAC money, which I am not. I'm not taking any foreign interest-related money, for instance, like APAC. I would talk about banning stock trading, individual stock trading in Congress, and I also do believe that there should be caps on contribution spending, total caps, not individual, and there should be, even though people may say it's unrelated, term limits.
Thank you so much, candidates. You have successfully completed the issues questions, and we are going to move on to the no filibusters round. So in front of you, you have a yes sign and a no sign. The yes is green, the no is red for anyone watching along. So if you accidentally lift it up backwards, we will know which one you meant. I will read a question. You will simply lift the sign. We are not going to be speaking or any of that. So this is, again, no filibustering. This is not the U.S. Senate. All right. First question. Do you support increasing the federal minimum wage? Thank you. Given that 5 of the last 47 presidents lost the popular vote, do you support abolishing the Electoral College? Okay. Should cryptocurrency be integrated into the mainstream U.S. fiscal system?
I feel the question is unclear.
Cryptocurrency?
Abstain.
Okay. Should members of Congress be subject to term limits? Okay. Should there be a maximum age or mandatory retirement age for Congress? Should federal law require safe storage of firearms in homes with minors? Thank you. Should universal background checks be required for all firearm sales? All right. Do you support term limits for Supreme Court justices? I'll refrain from commenting on that one. Should Supreme Court justices be subject to a binding code of ethics? Excellent. Do you support banning privately owned for-profit prisons? Do you support statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico?
Abstain.
What about Greenland? You have to answer.
Was that part of the question?
Do you support statehood for Greenland?
If Greenland wants to be, sure, why not?
I think they've made themselves clear about that. Will you accept corporate PAC money for this cycle? Okay. Do you support strong AI regulations at the federal level?
Sorry.
Should members of Congress be prohibited from trading individual stocks while in office? Would you support impeachment of Donald Trump? All right. Should billionaires pay a higher effective tax rate than they do today? Thank you. Should Congress prohibit large investment firms from purchasing single-family homes? Okay. Should ICE be prohibited from conducting enforcement actions at schools, hospitals, and churches? Okay. And last one before we go to a different category. If you do not win the primary, will you support the nominated candidate in the general election? Excellent. Thank you, candidates, for your no filibustering. You did an excellent job there. For the final segment, we are going to get a little bit personal. You will each have 30 seconds for these questions. So not 60, 30, about half the time. These are the fun ones, though I would say that you might have some strong opinions in the room, so be prepared to answer for them when you go out to meet with your people later. First question, and I will start with Dr. Devanath, go through, and then we'll rotate as we did for the issues. Dr. Devanath, what political leader, past or present, do you admire? 30 seconds.
I admire Shirley Chisholm. She was the first Black woman elected to Congress and one of the first to run for president of the United States. She broke so many barriers for women and for people of color and for Black women. And I want to follow in her footsteps, especially in this district, by being the first person of color to represent in 237 years.
Fantastic. Mr. Fleming, your favorite political leader, past, or I should say the political leader you admire, past or present?
I would have to say FDR because he got us through the war and enacted several social programs which we are dependent upon now, Social Security, Medicare. The Secretary of Labor that he hired was outstanding in that regard, and I would have to mention her as well.
Wonderful. Frances Perkins, for anyone who's wondering.
Yes.
Mr. Molsoff.
Martin Luther King Jr. I studied about the link between Mohandas Gandhi in terms of his philosophy of nonviolence and Martin Luther King. And it was a revolutionary way of doing political change at the time. And he, together with the other members of the civil rights movement, really made a huge change in the United States. And I really admire him for the courage that he must have had to stand up to that kind of violence and maintain his nonviolent perspective. And he just accomplished so much and was such a great leader for all of us.
Wonderful. Next question, Mr. Fleming, we'll start with you. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
At that time, actually, I wanted to be a rocket scientist. I actually had an article put into the newspaper in Petersburg, Virginia, when they had a newspaper. And it involved a drawing that I had of a spaceship going up into space. I continued that actually going to North Carolina State because of its involvement with NASA Langley, but I switched to physics.
Awesome. Mr. Molsoff?
My mother said I should be a professor, and that really stuck in my mind. As you can see, I still remember it now, how many years later. And basically, I'm just someone that really likes to learn and read about things and kind of mull things over. I'm also a good communicator, I hope, and someone that can actually explain concepts to other people. So that was something that really stuck in my mind as a child. And even though I actually was a professor in Cambodia briefly, but even though I'm now running for Congress, but I still think that it has a very applicable sense here in this race.
Wonderful. Dr. Devanath, what did you want to be when you grew up?
You know, I wanted to be so many things, and I think that's probably the reason that I'm a doctor and a lawyer, is because I just couldn't choose, y'all. So I wanted to be a scientist because of the evidence, right? I would go around my backyard, I would check everything out, I'd record it, I had all these collections of bugs and all these things. I wanted to be a scientist. But I also wanted to be a poet because I believe in the human spirit and I believe that it should be expressed.
Wonderful. Last question. Mr. Molsoff, we'll start with you. Get ready. Star Wars or Star Trek? And there is only one right answer, by the way.
I would have to say both. I really...
The consummate politician.
I really associate with the Star Wars aspect, how we're fighting the Death Star and the evil empire. Sometimes it feels like that's what we're going through now. But the Star Trek, I went around the world and went to many different places. I really associate with the kind of exploratory aspect of Star Trek.
Wonderful. Dr. Devenath?
So I would have to say Star Trek. So, Star Wars is great. Hey, listen, I love the movies, I love the action, the epic stories, but I think Star Trek takes a more individual and refined intellectual look at some of those issues. So I would go with Star Trek.
As I said, you will have to deal with the strong opinions out there with your people after this. Mr. Fleming, Star Wars or Star Trek?
I would say Star Trek because they boldly went where no man had ever gone before. I really like that. I like the tribbles. And I like the costumes a lot. And I really appreciate all of it.
I'm not gonna lie. I have my own opinions. You could probably read it on my face. All right. In all seriousness, candidates, thank you so much for revealing so much of both your political and also your personal hearts and souls. We truly appreciate it. We are at the closing statement section. You will each have 60 seconds to say whatever you need to say, including if you need to correct the fact that you do indeed like Star Wars more than Star Trek. But otherwise, anything else that you wanted to make sure that your people knew before we closed up today. And we will actually go in reverse order for this one. Mr. Mulsoff, please.
Took us my tour.
Sorry.
So I'm asking for all of your votes, and I really believe that I'm the best candidate in this race because of my career looking at basically almost every policy area. I'm not a young man anymore, although some people think that I am. I've spent so many years of my life since, as I mentioned, I decided that I wanted to make a difference and basically change the world. I've used my life to basically look at almost every policy option, and I have also the comparative perspective of having worked in so many other countries, and I've used this skill in diverse settings. And basically, I think I've demonstrated through my consistent track record that I have a willingness to work on behalf of other people. I've shown a good motivation, the correct motivation, and I also am motivated, and I am also academically advanced. I was a national merit finalist. I could not afford to go to Harvard. However, I'm also very academically advanced. So I use my academic skills. I'm very motivated, and I have the correct motivation, and I'm asking for your vote this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming, your closing statement, please.
I wanted to say at the outset that for those that may be looking at the recording, that this forum has not been sponsored or endorsed by Antifa or George Soros. I've dealt with a lot of people in the Libertarian Party and the Tidewater Tea Party in order to be able to develop ways to discuss things with them. And I think I've been successful. That also happens as the Soil and Water Conservation District Director, because as you know, a lot of people in the rural areas are very conservative. Even though they're being pummeled right now by Trump, a lot of them still held allegiance to them. I've got a wide variety of experience in science, education, the military, and I think that my variety of hands-on experience has provided a perspective that will enable me to talk to other people in Congress.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fleming. Dr. Devenath, 60 seconds.
Thank you so much, Kate. So first of all, I got into Harvard. It does not mean that I could afford it, by the way. So I still have $500,000 plus of student loans that I am paying off right as we speak, even though I have been a doctor for almost 10 years and was an attorney before that. So what we need right now in District 2 is we need somebody who has lived experience of being a working mother, somebody who is experiencing those student loans firsthand, somebody who takes care of our veterans and has that ability to serve day in and day out. You know, I am currently still working. I don't have the opportunity to campaign full-time. And that perspective needs to be shown in Congress. We have plenty of retired multimillionaires. We do, in Congress. But do we have working families? If you want a new perspective, please choose me.
Thank you so much, candidates. Thank you all so much. Melissa, our Mistress of Ceremonies, is going to close us out.
Well, thank you to all of our candidates, and I just would like it to be on the record that I'm a member of the Rebel Alliance. Some of your answers were unacceptable.
May the force be with you.
Yes. Thank you to our candidates and our outstanding moderator, Kate Powell, our timekeeper, Kat Porterfield. And our friends at Southampton Road's Indivisible for handling the videography, and all the volunteers who helped make tonight possible. Most importantly, thank you to everyone who came out tonight. We sincerely appreciate it. Yes, give yourself a hand. As you guys know, democracy works best when people show up, when they pay attention and participate, because participation is what's going to get us in November. Candidates will now head out to the lobby. We encourage you to stop by, introduce yourself, and continue the conversation. As a reminder, we do need everyone to make their way out of the auditorium so we can clean up and return the room to library staff in a timely manner. The recording of tonight's forum will be available soon. Please keep an eye out on covacoalition.org for that. And you please share it with your friends, family. And one final reminder, early voting is already underway. If you have not voted yet, make a plan to vote before August 4th. Thank you for joining us tonight. Travel safely and have a wonderful evening.
You said you did great.